today. Happy Friday. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brooke Lovelace, Executive Director of the Iowa Developmental Disabilities Council, and we do have a lot to cover here today. I just want to do a couple of housekeeping things. We should have our interpreter Jeff pinned for you. Thanks for being here, Jeff. There's also closed captioning option if you hit the more button, and you can put some questions and comments in the chat, and then if there's time, we will allow people to ask their questions off mute too. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. Amy, I think just turning it over to you.
All right. Well, hi everyone. I'm Amy Campbell and I work with the Iowa Developmental Disabilities Council. I write InfoNet, and so some of you may know about that. I'm going to jump right into some updates and then we're going to have a little bit of a celebration at the end of this because we had a great Capitol Day on Wednesday. Lots and lots of people at the Capitol and the timing worked out great. So we want to spend some time talking about that too. But I want to also be able to answer questions. The big news this week is we have the Senate budget target. So one of the things that the governor announces her budget at the beginning of the year, and she bases that on what we think the revenues or the amount of money we take in as a state will be at that time. And then in March, we get kind of an updated revenue, and that's when the Senate and the House look at how much money the state's taking in and what they're going to spend. So the governor's budget was a little bit higher, about almost 2% higher than the current year for the new fiscal year, which for those of you that don't know, our state fiscal year starts on July 1. So we're now planning for fiscal year 2027, which starts July 1, this July 1. So that is what the year we budget for. And I want to make note that the Senate numbers in there do not include the supplemental that we are putting in for Medicaid for the current fiscal year, which is about 70 million. So that's not showing up in these numbers. It is showing up in the governor's, but not in the Senate version, I don't think. I haven't been able to see the actual budget documents, just the announcements. And so these numbers may just change ever so slightly as those supplementals get added in. But you will see that the Senate is coming in just a little bit less than the governor, about 47 million less. And that is because in March, the revenues dropped by 46 million. So they are lowering their budget by that amount that the March revenues came in. So that's about a 1.2% increase. That's $114 million in new spending, which isn't a lot. And 100 million, almost 100 million of that is in the education increases. So there's really not much money extra in there. You'll recall from our last reports and capital chat, the legislature did pass and the governor signed an HMO tax, which temporarily taxes all nonprofit HMOs in the state. And that will bring in about 125 million, I think it was the number, or 123 million in new dollars for Medicaid next year. So we're still using dollars that we aren't pulling in as a state that are not going to be permanent dollars to be spent. So that's a challenge for the future. And also, I want to make note that, get this to show up. Our revenue estimate is just shy of $8.5 billion. We're spending more than we're taking in as tax dollars. And we're doing that by taking money from our rainy day funds and our taxpayer relief fund, which we still have money in, but that's not a sustainable option. And if the revenues don't start to move back up closer to what we're spending, we're going to find ourselves in trouble in about three years. So that is something to watch. I'm not screaming caution, but you're going to see legislators being very shy about doing anything significant this next year. I just wanted to show you all of the budgets we have out so far. Not all of them have things in it that you may be interested in, but I did highlight a few. Um, there's not any real significant changes here. In the education budget, I am trying to figure out what this cut to children's mental health training for teachers is. They cut it nearly in half. I don't know what that impact is if they weren't using those dollars. We will learn a little bit more about that as the budget documents come out. Um, there is a couple changes in the economic development budget that have moved some of the independent living. It doesn't have the independent living funding that used to be under voc rehab. The governor had moved those to HHS, so I'm assuming that's where we're going to see it. You're going to notice that the big budget we all look at, Health and Human Services, is not here. The two budgets you're not seeing are infrastructure, which spends gambling dollars, so the money that comes in for gambling, and HHS. The reason you don't see HHS is the legislature is very upset with the Department of Health and Human Services for not answering questions that they have. I met with a House committee chair who told me that they have had questions going back to July last summer that still have not been answered. So they basically said, we're not going to uh, start a budget for the Health and Human Services Department until they answer some of our questions. So I think you're going to see that very late in session. Um, and I know don't expect rate increases. There's just not going to be any room for that. The only thing I have heard is trying to fix um, what had been done to speech language pathology reimbursement. There were some cost containment changes made in December that have impacted them pretty significantly. I've heard some reimbursements gone down to by 30, like 70%. So it's 30% of what it was. Um, and it has something to do with not being able to bill for multiple services at the same time. So that's the one area I have heard legislators are concerned about there. You're going to see that there's no House targets. That's because the House has them. We know the House has their budget. We know that each budget subcommittee chair has gotten their number of how much they're allowed to spend, but that's not been published or public yet. I don't have access to it. I've not seen it. I'm guessing it probably will come out over this weekend, maybe even later today or early next week. So I'm keeping an eye on it. I would just watch the DD Council's website. We have a news section. I'll post it there, and we'll also post it on Facebook, on InfoNet Facebook, and I can share it to the DD Council Facebook as well. Um, so that's kind of that. Nothing in the last week has really happened on any of the bills that we've been watching for you guys. So I would keep watching the bill tracker for status on bills that you're interested in. I didn't see anything on the debate calendar. I think subacute mental health was on the debate calendar for Monday, but that was the only one that piqued my interest there. A lot of things are tied up right now in the final end of session negotiations. So if it was a governor's priority, it's being kind of held up with all of this because they're going to use it all to negotiate. So um, I will stop there and see if anyone has any questions, and then we're going to turn it over to Brooke to talk about Disability Advocacy Day. Does anybody have any questions they want to talk about or bills that you're wondering about? Rumors you've heard?
Amy,
You have just
I have
18 days. Oh, sorry.
Amy, I have one question. This is June. Along with the rule change that with the speech and language pathology piece, that same uh, similar discussion was being held around the changes with the SCL hours for intermittent services for BI waiver and ID waiver. My understanding is that the department decided to put that on hold. Um, Two questions with that. One, I was a little unclear if it was being put on hold for both the BI waiver and ID waiver or only ID. So that's question number one.
And I don't have the answer to that one,
Okay.
but I can find out.
Thank you. Number two, when they say that they were going to put it on hold, what kind of notice might we get if they put that rule back onto the committee schedule?
Yeah, let me just say this. I don't like it when departments say I'm going to put things on hold while the session's in place, because once session adjourns, they can do whatever they want.
Mm.
So I think, um, I th at least when I've talked to the leaders of the HHS committees, they have indicated they might have to put something in the bill to make sure that they don't move forward with some of those things. And I don't know if that's going to happen or if they're going to trust the department not to change that again. And in terms of notice, nobody got notice. Wasn't it retroactive when they did it anyway? So it's not like you had much notice to begin with. I don't know that they have to give you on the cost containments, not much notice at all. I can tell you the legislature was very upset by the cost containment decisions because I'll just say this is my words. They felt kneecapped because they had used their political influence to increase rates, and then the department went and cut them
Mhm.
without their without even telling legislators. So, but
So
yeah,
at this point, is there anything that we can or should be doing to?
I would advocate for with like Representative Meyer and Senator Costello to put something in the budget that prohibits them from enacting those cost containment measures,
Okay.
those two specific ones. I think IACP, Iowa Association of Community Providers, is doing that for the SCL, but I'm not sure about the other. I know that the speech language pathologist lobbyist is working pretty hard on that, which is also your lobbyist. So,
Right, right.
so I know that that's something that Teresa's been working on too.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate the insight.
Yeah, and I will look into the hold if it's for both, just for clarification. Of course, if legislators have been waiting since July to get answers to questions, I'm not sure I'm going to get them either, but I will ask. Um, any other questions? Oh, somebody's raising a hand.
Kay
It's
had her hand
yeah.
and then Sherry did.
Okay, it's Kay. Um, I'm just wondering, would it be useful or worthwhile in regard to what June was talking about for advocates to contact members of whoever, I don't know who, oversight committee, whoever, if they were in session, who the rule change would go to, but just contact certain legislators, you tell us which, to say we're concerned that this could happen, to kind of let them know we're concerned that it could happen. So then if they do something, maybe the legislators will watch them more. I don't know. Thoughts?
Um, on cost containments, they don't really have to get approval for anybody. So I think it's the people that need to be watching that are, I mean, Administrative Rules Review Committee do the rules changes, but in I would say right now the key people are the Health and Human Services Budget Subcommittee. And if you go to like our guide online, you can see the list, or you can go to the legislative website and click on committees, and you'll find the tab committees, and it'll show you who all is on that HHS but appropriations subcommittee. So that's budget subcommittee. And if you click on that, it's a small group. It's like five senators and eight or seven representatives, um, and the overall appropriations committee. So those are the key people. I mean, the people that where the rubber hits the road is the HHS Appropriations Subcommittee, and then what their recommendations are will go to the full Appropriations Committee. So those are the two key groups. And again, if you go to the legislative website and click on the committees tab, you can find appropriations, and then a little bit further down are all of the budget subcommittees. And it'll actually link you to their profiles, the people who are on it, so you can get their emails that way too, if you want to send those. It's really, if you happen to have a member on that committee that represents you, if your representative is on it, that's even better. You can also always just email your legislators. So, and just say, hey, we're concerned about this. Can you connect with your members that are on these committees or something like that?
And Kay, I did just put the link in the chat for you.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Sherry.
Hi, thank you for the update. I was curious, has there been any more conversation about home? What we're seeing at the provider level is we have individuals who are on, let's just say, the HD waiver, and they were getting SCL and employment services paid through the regions. Well, now that the regions have gone away and turned into the DAP will no longer pay for anyone who's on a waiver. And an individual is sitting on a waiting list to be on another waiver to get the services, but their services are being cut. And it seems like there's just not been a whole lot of conversation about, home was delayed, and I haven't heard a whole ton about it. What's happening there?
Yeah, nothing. Nothing. It's very, very concerning. And I think when I've talked to legislators throughout the session, they're like, we don't think we can do this right now. I mean, they're kind of skittish about how much it's going to cost. They don't know how much it's going to cost. They haven't gotten, they didn't say this, but I think a lot of the questions that they had submitted this summer and fall to HHS were around home, and those are some of the ones they haven't gotten answers for. Um, and I honestly, I haven't been on the Medicaid member town hall, so I don't know if anybody has been on those to know if they've shared any updates. I know we've had people asking, and they're just like, well, it's in process. And I think it's on hold, to be honest, because they have money
Well,
and change in leadership.
I mean, they are, I mean, I think they're waiting for CMS approval for this phase one that's still supposed to start October 1st, which doesn't include all the waivers like the ID and BI. It just includes the waivers, Sherry, like you talked about, like health and disability waiver. But as far as what they're telling the steering committee, they're still set to go if they get CMS approval this fall for that first round, that first phase.
I just, those changes that were made at the DAP level were supposed to be consistent with home. So people are getting left behind. And the other thing I was just curious about is I keep hearing, well, if there's a service, we want to make it equitable across the state, which is great. I think that's great. I'm hearing about people losing services. I'm not hearing about people getting services. So I wondered, is there a mechanism for accountability of, okay, as you're taking these services away from this group of people, are you expanding services to other people, and how many people? Is there anything out there that I should be watching for that?
No, I think the concern is who is watching. I don't know there's no evaluation going on, and there's no one watching. And I haven't really heard a lot from the DAP side. I've heard about, they're doing a gap analysis on the behavioral health side, but I haven't heard anything on the disability side. So maybe I actually think that might be something for like a government oversight committee to look into. The government oversight committee is supposed to be looking at things like that, and they can meet at any time. I feel this is an Amy personal comment, so not reflecting anything, but I feel like the fact that only sometimes do we ever have a budget subcommittee meeting is frustrating because we don't get this information. Normally you would have a presentation and they would update you on home, or they would update you on how the DAPS and the behavioral health system are going, but they have had very few, and the Senate never meets. The Senate budget subcommittees no longer meet. So we don't have those presentations like we used to so that we can get that information and we can have legislators ask questions. So I think it would be a good, I think personally, I think it would be a good opportunity for the Government Oversight Committee to hear how's the behavioral health system going, how's the DAPS going, what are those gaps? And I think the hard part is you get the sort of anecdotal stories. So I've heard this person lost services, but I haven't heard anyone gaining services. Have they? I mean, do people brag about when they gain services? You hear about when you lose. So how can we find that information out? And I think that might be a role of the Government Oversight Committee. Honestly, I think a lot of things are just being held off until we get a new governor and see what happens with a new governor, because we don't really we have a temporary leader at HHS. So there's sort of a lack of I don't want to say lack of leadership. There's just not much. We're kind of on a holding pattern right now, is the feeling I get. And unfortunately, people are getting caught in that. But I think you're bringing up something good. Let me talk to Brooke and Carla. Maybe we can talk about how we can maybe tackle this all together.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Hey, Mary.
Hey, this might be kind of a dumb question, but in regard to the advocacy efforts mentioned by June and Kay, do you feel it's more efficacious to reach out to these committees and subcommittees as like a group of advocates collectively or as individuals?
Individuals, if you live in their district, collectively, I think they appreciate because they get like 400 emails a day. So I think sometimes if you can come together as a group or as a group of organizations, that is more helpful to them, and will be more actionable because they just can't answer all of them. And I just had that conversation with Senator Blake, who's my senator, that he just can't even read them. He has his clerk kind of aggregate them and then pull out ones that are his folks. But I do think if you can do a little extra work to go in together, even if it's not organizations, just 10 advocates,
Right. Thank you. That's helpful. I appreciate it.
And always don't use a form letter. If you get a form letter, I mean, we have them on our Take Action Center too, but always modify it because, um, you know, they know form letters.
So would it be one letter that's not a form letter, but signed by a bunch of people? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got about 5 minutes left, so I'm gonna let Brooke talk about Wednesday.
Yeah.
So,
Well, as Amy said at the beginning, there was a very successful Disability Advocacy Day on Wednesday, April 1st, April Fool's Day. There was 15 a little bit over 15 disability organizations, but more importantly, there was over about 200 advocates that showed up at the Capitol on Wednesday to talk about Medicaid and how vital Medicaid services are for them to be able to live, work, and play in the community. And I think the tagline was "Don't fool," since it was April Fool's Day, with our Medicaid services. And so the day was really filled with advocates sharing their stories and their messages about that. It started off with the agencies talking a little bit about what each agency does. And then we had some legislators give some key remarks about Medicaid and disability services. But more importantly, we had some advocates share what Medicaid means to them. And then, they were invited, of course, to go up and talk to their legislators and share those messages. And we provided a little bit of support and training if they needed that. A big shout out to the ARC of Central Iowa and the Common Coalition. They really did all the heavy lifting to make this event happen. The organizations that participated are part of the Iowa Disability Policy Alliance, which many folks that are on this call today are part of. And many people that are on this call were actually there at the Capitol too. So I think they can also, if we had time, can make some comments about how successful they thought the day was. But as you had mentioned, Mary, the Iowa Disability Policy Alliance is a group of organizations that have come together to try and support disability advocacy, but also have a kind of a common voice and with legislators on some key issues that are important to all of us. And that might be, this is some issue that the steering committee is talking about with the SCL rates and with the BI and the ID waiver. And so that could be an issue that we take up and write one of these letters for about our concerns with it. But anyway, I think it was a very successful day. 3B Barbecue. I always say their name wrong, but they are a barbecue place out of Johnston. They provided food for everybody, and they are a business that hires about 30 employees with disabilities. And so it's cool to have them there. Had a great turnout by legislators. I'm sure I'm skipping something, but thanks for all the advocates. A real shout out to them too for being there and showing up at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning on April Fool's Day and sharing their messages.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody wants to add anything. I hope they're going to do it next year too, because it was really successful. I'm not going to go through too much more. There's a link to all of this. We will post this right after on our website. And it'll be in my weekly newsletter if you get that. I will have all these links, but we have the talking points that were used and some message tips and other links. But I did want to give you a heads up about a couple things that we just saw. Oh, well, I do want to highlight, is her name Stacy? Is that
Yeah.
Brooke?
Yeah.
Yeah. Stacy came up with a great idea. She couldn't write her story fast enough when legislators weren't at the Capitol or when we're busy and we're unable to come out. So she had created these labels that are the size of those slips you send in and had her story and her contact information on it. So if people weren't available right when she was there, she just slapped the sticker on and had them lay it on their desk, which I thought was a great, innovative advocacy idea that I wanted to share with people. She just used an Avery stock and printed them off, and I don't know. I think that's great because you can only write so fast, right? And some people we found were having trouble writing because of maybe their physical disability couldn't write quick enough on those messages. So it might be a good tip also for people to have those ready so that they don't have to do that laborious writing out of those slips. But I did want to give everybody a tip if you want to write this link down. And again, this will be on our Capitol Chat slides online that you can link to after this meeting. But you recall earlier this session, the Department of Education had announced that they got a special waiver to do a combined special education unified accountability system. Honestly, I don't know a lot about it, but I just saw they announced that they have 3 options for people to react to, and they want to get public comment on which direction they should go. And so I think you watch a little video and then take a question, you answer a questionnaire. So they'll walk you through what those options are. And that is the link to that. You can also probably just Google it and find it as well. And then also, Brooke, the DD Council is asking for
Yeah,
feedback.
as we talked about last year, or last time we met was Capitol Chat. Every 5 years we're required to do a state plan that talks about the work that we do, which allows us to do Capitol Chat and some of the other stuff that we do at the Capitol. So it's very important that we have our advocates look at that plan and give their feedback on what they like about what we're doing, what they want to see us to do more of, and make those comments in that survey that we have. So please check that out on our website, and please provide your comment, good or bad, about what the DD Council is doing. And we also are taking our applications right now for our Youth Leadership Academy, which we do with a couple of other organizations. It's virtual, so youth between the age of 14 and 21 can participate virtually from across the state. It takes place at the end of July. We're accepting applications for 15 folks. So if you know of somebody that may be interested in doing that, check that application out on our website. Did we talk fast enough to get that all out in 12:30?
Sorry, I was on mute. We've got one more planned capital chat. We kind of have one on if we need it on May 1st, May Day. But we thought we would kind of see where we're at after next week, after in 2 weeks, which will be right before the end of session. We'll know kind of whether they're gonna go long or if they'll be done on time on April 21st. So just 18 days left before they lose their money. They have to do it for free, no staff. All right, thanks everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate
Have a good
it.
weekend.
Thank you.